Hi everyone and welcome back. Welcome to my YouTube channel. And recently I was covering this microservice deployment with the AWS CDK. Now on the next, so we already deployed the Lambda with the API gateway and Dynamo. Now on the next, I wanted to try with this real application. The real application I can check one of the playlist of which I was covering is Airbnb clone. And I wanted to finish this playlist on a particular stage where you can pick up. So we already did lots of things already, like the basic setup, database design, uh, Next.js we are using with the NextAuth and Auth0 for session management, and we are writing APIs in the Next.js. So these are the couple of videos are already there. So if you are lost about my current video, which I'm going to publish, then you first check on these. All these steps we have already performed, like Next.js app is already there. And this is kind of quite running. I just need to populate the auth0 client ID and client ID on the UI. So I should be able to do the login, and I should be able to log in and do stuff like booking and all. So those pages I need to create. So that is the piece of the pie which we are going to solve here. This is the Next.js apps SSR, and we are using NextAuth. NextAuth is the authentication library which is managing the session for our API route and the protected pages. It is using the auth0. I mean, there is a NextAuth package is there. You just need to configure the client ID and a session, and you can manage. When you do the login with auth0, the session will be managed, and you can protect your API routes, which are further going to talk to the proxy gateway or in the built-in Nest.js, because that will be the gateway. So let's say I wanted to fetch the listing, Airbnb booking listing in my area. So I need to call a particular service to give me the result. Those kind of APIs will be public. But let's say if I wanted to fetch my own bookings, then I need to know who is the current user session. That session we need to propagate from Next.js API routes and pass the token to the gateway. That will forward the same thing to the target service. We will know the user identity and we will return the data based on the user ID, because that is the logged in user. Like the bookings, previous booking history, and do the new booking. All these will happen through the Nest.js APIs which we have here. And how we are going to interface the Next.js, the pages will talk to Next.js API routes. API routes will further communicate to our services. Okay, this is the, let's say these are the pages. They will access the server-side API routes. Those API routes internally will call the Next.js API endpoint to do all these operations. Okay, so that's the real picture which we are talking about. This piece is already done. We are able to get the bearer token. Once this is, I think, there, and reach the token integrity with the proxy and microservice, how that should happen. Once you get a token, by doing authentication with auth0, that same token, authorization token, you need to forward to the services so that they can validate the user and return the data. So that is the next piece of the puzzle which we are going to solve. So let's start with the writing a first microservice. Authentication is already happening with the NextAuth. We need to onboard the user. Let's say in the auth0 also you can configure, okay, sign in with the Google. All these social providers are there. That's very easy to integrate. For now, let's say I already have a existing user and I can just do the login. Simply do the login, and here sign in with auth0. When you click onto it, then it will take you to the auth0 screen. There you can also log in with the Google, log in with the Facebook, log in with the Twitter, and that will enable you to access my application as a logged in user. Okay, so once you enter, your session will be initialized, and then at server side you have your session token in the cookies. So all these communication when Next.js client and Next.js API routes are happening through the cookies, and same cookies, authorization cookies, we are passing to the services. So I mean, there are different ways to do this. What I'm going to do is always going to be depend on Next.js API routes. Next.js API routes first will check my session. If my session is valid, then only I should be able to talk to Next.js API gateway. Or let's say tomorrow, if I want to access the Next.js APIs also, because what happens is if I call directly the gateway where I have a token already, because token does not expire, tokens are stateless. If you, let's say if I copy the token from this session at the client side and try to use the token directly to hit the APIs, then it will still allow you because token has not expired. And here in this logout, we are not writing any custom logic to expire this session token. So here there is some security stuff which we need to discuss, how we can manage that. But Next.js API routes will call the gateway to the respective service. So the whole flow from Next.js API, Next.js UI pages to the Next.js service. This is NEXT. This is NEST, right? Next.js. These are two different things. Next.js we are using to write a server-side APIs. Next.js is we are using to write a server-side UI pages. I mean, this is also SSR. Whatever you are doing here, this is purely called as a backend stuff. Okay, this is all backend. I can move it to, yes. This is also, you can say SSR. This is all these things are happening at the server. Okay, so that is my next thing, and I need to do some coding, and then we can start adding things onto the Next.js service. Let's say we can build a simple search service, user authentication, authentication happening with the Auth0. So maybe we don't need it, but similarly, let's say user APIs, where we can manage the user history, user bookings, user reference, user preference, all those things can go here. And then payments, orders, all those things can go here. So we are building a tiny services. They will have their own database tables, and the data will be coming from this path. Okay, so let's get started again, and I'm planning to finish this. And then as we are doing this microservice series, I can also target to deploy these as a Lambda, these services, and will deploy this Next.js app on AWS as a Lambda, because this is SSR stuff, server-side stuff, not some React app which you can deploy on S3 and CloudFront and expose it through the CloudFront. This is SSR, so we need to have a Lambda which can trigger this server-side routes, server-side system. Okay, let's get started.